Congratulations! Hello! Welcome to another Dreadlocks question and answer video where I'm going to answer questions left to me by you guys, and I will hopefully answer them in a satisfactory manner to the best of my abilities. First question to answer this week is from Coleman. Jared asks, I feel like if I wash my dreadlocks roughly, it's sort of like the root rubbing technique. Do you have any input on that? Washing dreadlocks is all good, it's all fine. You want to keep your dreadlocks nice and clean. When they're clean, they're going to be less oily and therefore more inclined to knot and lock, but also the actual process of washing your hair can be good for them because there's interaction, there's movement going on, and when there's movement going on, there's opportunity for knots to be formed. I always say if you have hair sat in a box, you just take some hair, put it in a box, you can leave it for 100 years and there will be no dreadlocks, but if you have some hair and you're constantly moving around, knots can form, things will happen. If you are washing your hair in a way that is sort of circular, which a lot of people do, like this, then it can of course have similar effects to the root rubbing technique. It's not going to be quite as intensive or rough on the dreadlocks as the root rubbing technique can be because you're not specifically working on one dreadlock, unless that's how you wash your dreads. But if you're just rubbing, then it's just going to be general friction, and because of the water and the soap on your hair, it's not going to be on just sort of dry hair against scalp. There's also extra movement and friction going on in the drying when you have your towel and your towel drying your hair, so this is all good for the dreadlocks. I would not specifically go out of my way to wash my dreadlocks in a way that could be considered roughly. Younger dreadlocks are going to require more care, you're going to be more gentle. Older dreadlocks that are more rope-like you can be a bit rougher with, but it also depends on the dreadlocks. When you have young dreadlocks and they are weaker and you do need to be more gentle, you will just sort of feel how much they can take. You go, these aren't all that tough, and so I'm not going to be crazy with them. When they're more rope-like, you know what they can go through, and you know you're not going to damage them if you are a little bit rougher. So I would not encourage you to sort of go beyond what you feel they can take just for the added friction, because although it is good to interact with them, they are going to benefit from that. Of course, if you are rougher than necessary, it is just hair, you can obviously end up with bad things happening. Just wash them as they feel like they need to be washed, and there will be no worries. Be sensible. Dreadsfodays asks, will you make a video on how to make those beads you put pictures of on Instagram? There are many pictures of beads on my Instagram, like bead hoarder. Most of them are beads that have not been made by me. They are beads that are from other people that have been sent forth for my dreadlocks giveaway contest things, competitions. There are some on there that have been made by me, and in the future if I do sit down to create some beads, you know, play with grown-up Play-Doh and make some beads, I may film it and create a video, but it is not a certainty because I don't want to embarrass myself with my sort of amateurish "this is a bead," because there are lots of professionals out there that would be like, what is he doing? HatchetHead asks, dreads obviously make it slightly more difficult with people's preconceptions and negativity towards dreads. So I was wondering, since you've never really not had dreads, since I had dreadlocks since I was 14, then what jobs or what kind of jobs have you had, just as an idea of where is a good place to look for me, smiley face. I'm currently thinking about getting dreads and I was wondering just how much it would set me back in interviews. I've had a lot of people in the past try to come to me and get reassurances regarding employability with dreadlocks. Sometimes younger people whose parents have said, if you have dreadlocks you will never get a job, and then they come to me saying, tell my mother that I will be able to get a job if I have dreadlocks. I'm like, well... When you have dreadlocks, you're going to scare off a lot of people. I try and compare it to if you had lots of sort of alternative, very visible piercings or visible tattoos. There are going to be certain employers out there who are not going to take a shine to such alternative appearances. So while you probably wouldn't be surprised if you had a slightly more difficult time getting a job if you had lots of piercings or tattoos, dreadlocks are very much the same. It's going to depend entirely on the employer. It's going to be different for different employers, because some employers aren't going to care. Some employers are going to be like, no, that is far too much in the casual side of the smart casual dress code. And therefore it's going to be more difficult to find employment. A lot of people ask what I have done to be some sort of gleaming example of dreadlocked employment. I have worked as a gardener for a few years, various gardening activities at a number of places, and I've also worked as, I'm not sure what the technical description would be, sort of care worker-esque type affair where I kept guard at night in case the old people escaped. Well, no, not escaped, but in case anything was happening that was bad and I was there to sort of babysit events. I am still a full-time full-time student, and so I just basically have picked up random bits that have come my way, and so I don't have a lot of sort of sage wisdom to share in that area. Next question from Joe Dirt. Question, my dreads are coming up on 3 months of age and it seems the root area around some of the dreads is sort of matting together quite vigorously. In the beginning I was separating them often, but I've kind of let it do its thing as I'm going for the more organic freeform approach. Is this something that could get out of control, or will it eventually even itself out once they get longer? Dreadlocks are going to stick together. Dreadlocks are formed by hairs that are knotted together, and since multiple dreadlocks are also formed from hairs, they are going to be rather likely at the root where they're close together to knot with one another, and it's little dreadlock relationships going on. Even if you are going for a more natural, freeform, organic approach, you do need to keep separating them, otherwise they are going to grow together. This was 4 dreadlocks, now it is 1 dreadlock. That is what happens when you don't separate them. When dreadlocks are younger, they are softer and they are gonna be more susceptible to congoing together, but it really depends person to person. Generally, when someone wants dreadlocks to congo, they happen to have hair that doesn't seem to want to do it, and people who don't want congos can't seem to stop it. But if you don't want your dreadlocks to combine together, then you're gonna have to keep separating, and you will have to continue separating for the entire lifetime of the dreadlocks, because they are going to continue to form little webs together, and the longer you leave them, the more webs form, and once they start growing as, you know, joined together, they are no longer 2 dreadlocks stuck together, then they are 1 single dreadlock, and then it becomes more difficult to separate them. So keep on top of it. Marla Nicole Ware asks, I am in newborn dread phase and they look great, however I only have 20 or so dreads. They are finger sized and I have normal thickness of hair. What is the average amount of dreads most people get on their head? No one ever answers the question of how many they have. No one answers that question? Oh, it's some sort of secret. Different people are gonna have different numbers of dreadlocks. It comes down to how many sections you have. So if you have lots of little squares formed, then you're gonna have lots of dreadlocks. If you only have a few, in your case 20, then you're only gonna have 20 dreadlocks. That is, of course, if you start your dreadlocks yourself and don't go neglect, because if you go neglect, then you're gonna have all sorts of interesting things going on. Hair thickness is not gonna dictate how many sections you can make. Hair thickness is just going to decide how thick the dreadlocks from those sections will be. Head size is going to dictate how many sections you can make. But if you have thin hair, obviously you're going to have to create larger sections, otherwise you're just not going to have enough hair in that section to make anything of any sort of substance. I will answer for you now how many I have. I have counted previously and came out to around 38, 39, so that's almost double what you have. I have a lot more tips because there's like 4 here, but at the roots they're going to be growing out 38, 39. I have seen a very wide range of dreadlock numbers, because people have revealed to me how many they have. I don't think I've come into contact with someone who has refused to tell me how many they have. I've seen from around 12 to well over 100. I don't think it makes a massive amount of difference how many you have, as long as you're happy with how many you have and how they fill out the space on your head. Once you've started them, you're kind of stuck with how many you have, unless you congo some together, in which case they will double up or triple up, or depends how many you let congo, but that's obviously going to mean you're going to have even fewer. If you wanted to have more, then you would have to brush them out and start over, but I would not brush them out and start them over just for the sake of having a larger number. Of course, you would only do that if you had some sort of serious issue with how many you had and where they were placed and such and such. Those are my questions for this week. If you have a question you would like to ask me in Dreadlocks Q&A, you can either leave it in a comment down in the comment section. Please write question at the start of your comment, or you can join the Facebook page at facebook.com/lazydreads, and each Tuesday I ask for questions, and then whichever question gets the most likes by the time that I next film will get answered that week. If you liked this video, if it was helpful, if it was useful, if it was fun, you can like it, and then I will know that someone liked it and it was fun and helpful. If you'd like to see more videos from me in the future, you can of course subscribe, and then they will all be sent to you via the internet to your YouTube feed. All my stuff can always be found on lazydreads.com. I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope to see you next week for my next Q&A video. Farewell!